We begin in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, where retired military personnel on Tuesday barricaded the entrance to the Ministry of Finance in Abuja with canopies and chairs, demanding the full payment of their long-overdue entitlements. This protest follows a similar action in December, during which the retirees shut down the ministry over the government's failure to settle their claims. For months, the retirees were told there were no funds to clear their entitlements, despite an official approval for payment. They are owed a 20% to 28% salary increment covering January to November 2024. The retirees are also demanding payments for other outstanding benefits, including palliatives for the period between October 2023 and November 2024, an additional 32,000 naira added to their pensions, a bulk payment of the security debarment allowance, and a refund of pension deductions from the salaries of medically boarded soldiers. In response to their December protest, the federal government paid 50% of the owed entitlements and promised to settle the balance. However, the retirees claim the government has failed to fulfill its promise, prompting the resumption of their protests. And now joining us in the studio is Deputy Veteran Commander Awal Abdullahi Aliyu, who is the spokesperson, Ministry of Defense, Ministerial Standing Committee on Military Veterans Welfare. Thank you so much for joining us on the News Hour.
Thank you for having me.
Now, this seems to be a recurring decimal. Just weeks to the January 15th Armed Forces Remembrance Day. This protest is coming up. You would recall this equally happened in 2022, 2023, 2024, and now 2025. What do you think is responsible for the insincerity on the part of stakeholders that has gone on during negotiations and talks that followed every protest?
Well, thank you very much. To an extent, government is a continuous process, and therefore, from one government to another, whatever is outstanding in the previous government should the incoming or present government should continue with it. That is number one. Number two, the issue of our outstanding benefit, which, like you rightly mentioned, from 20 to 28 increment, the bulk payment of the SDA, bulk payment of SDA, deduction of all these put together, the palliatives and what have you, are part of the challenges that we've been having. And we've been reaching out to government concerning these matters, complaining, writing letters, doing the needful. And lately, the Minister of Defense, Abubakar, of course, in collaboration with the Minister of State, Matole, come up with a five-man ministerial standing committee to interweave between the ministry and, of course, the retirees to the ministry in order to find a way of reaching out and to bridge the communication gap. But then along the line, we were made to understand the issue is the ministry is not actually the holder of the finances of the veterans. It comes from the Ministry of Finance, and then the Ministry of Finance will equally say it's from the it gives approval, and then Office of the Accountant General. But the whole thing is that the President and Commander-in-Chief Bola Ahmed Tinubu has approved the payment of these outstanding allowances, and then they all usually tell us short of funds or cash backing and what have you. These have been part of what we've been going through. Hence the reason why naturally when the time comes, we'll write, we'll tell them that if they don't do it, then we'll have to go out on the street. In the last 3, 4, 5 years, we've been doing this, like you rightly mentioned, trying to get our entitlement, trying to get our right, reaching out and protesting before we'll be able to get what we're entitled. But fair enough, the last December, we had meeting with the Minister of Finance in collaboration or with under the coordination of the Minister of Defense, Badaru, and of course the Minister of State Defense, Matawale. We met with the Minister of Finance in the conference room of Minister of Defense, where we had an agreement with him on the issue of payment of the 100%. He told us that yes, it has been approved, but there is short of funds, so he can only oblige 50% on the 5th. We had that meeting with him on the 5th, and up till 12 midnight, we are holding that meeting with him, and then promised that by on or before the 25th of December 2024, the outstanding 50% will be paid. And he equally promised that there was going to be a follow-up meeting to discuss the issue of palliatives, because he's the coordinating minister of the economy of Nigeria. So anything that has to do with the economy and finances, of course, is directly under his supervision. So he said he's going to meet with us to discuss the palliative, the bulk payment of SDA, of the new rate of SDA, and as well as the minimum wage and any other outstanding issue that had to do with the military veterans. That was what we agreed with him, but eventually, unfortunately, we were not able to meet with him after that first meeting. But the following day after the meeting, he promised we were going to get the alert will go into the military pension board account. It did. And then we were waiting and hoping and counting on his word and his integrity for the fact that he said on or before the 25th. 25th come and passed, 31st of December come and passed, January 1st, and today is January 7th. We reached out to him. Actually, we understand that there's a process, government process of trying to get funds, do all the necessary things. But then eventually we said, after meeting with the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Defense, and then stakeholders were there. Like if you were there today, you saw what happened.
Yes.
The DSS were there. From the DSS headquarters, they sent in representative to speak with us. We said, no, we are not living, we are not violent, we are peaceful, we are orderly, because we are military men. As retired military personnel, of course, we are on military reserve list. We can even be re-engaged at any time. So we are naturally disciplined and orderly, and we will never do anything that will be out of order or create chaos or discomfort for government.
Okay, then what then was the resolution today?
Well, the resolution was simple. Eventually, after all the hullabaloo, the Permanent Secretary, like I said, Minister of Defense, was there twice. The Commissioner of Police, FCT, was there. The DSS were there. Everybody was there trying to convince us to leave the place. We say we're not leaving until we get alert. And at the end of it, we were promised that before 4 p.m., surely the money would drop into the account of Military Pension Board, and eventually it did. And then we said, okay, as that has happened, we will not move, even when the Permanent Secretary, that we so much believe and trust him, but yet when he come, we refuse to leave at that until we see the Chairman of Military Pension Board come to address us. He came in, he addressed that the money has dropped into the account of Military Pension Board, about 23 point something billion. Then after that, we were ready to disperse, and then we addressed our men that, okay, the money has come, the MPB chairman has come, he has addressed us, we know, we trust the man. So once he said it, we know he's going to do it. In any case, it was not his effort alone, it was a collaborative effort of course, the Minister of Defense, the main Minister Badaru, the Junior Minister Matawale, and of course the Permanent Secretary, even the Chief of Defense Staff, and the Minister of Finance. We appreciate eventually at the end of the day what happened, but we don't have to go through this before we can get
Of course. Just on a final note, and before we let you go, I'd like to hear from you. What do you think is the implication of this, attitude of governments towards, the current servicemen? I
think the implication first is there's going to be distrust and discomfort. It will create distrust between the veterans and the authorities, and in fact, even the serving personnel and the authorities, where you will say this and at the end of the day, it might not happen the way you say it or the time you promise it is going to happen. That is very, very dangerous. But then we are meant to understand, like I said, the President and Commander-in-Chief Bola Ahmed Tinubu approved this thing, but the issue of funds and what have you were what brought the challenge. But eventually, we got it. We hope that is not just the end of it. We have the bulk payment of SDA. We have the issue of palliative. We have the issue of deduction of medically boarded personnel. We have other pending issues. We even have the issue of Veterans Federation of Nigeria. But one important thing there is that we have got the commitment of the Minister of Defense, Badaru, and his State Minister, Matawale, and of course the Permanent Secretary, that all that is outstanding will be followed duly, and that they will not allow us to come to the street again before getting whatever we're entitled. So here we want to appreciate, appreciate the President and Commander-in-Chief Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the Minister of Defense Badaru, the Minister of State Matawale, the Permanent Secretary Ambassador Aduda, of course the Chief of Defense Staff, and the Minister of Finance for, in any case, eventually giving us our entitlement. But like Oliver Twist, we are hoping and waiting for the bulk payment of SDA, the issue of palliative, and of course we hope that the outstanding, the deduction for the medically boarded will also be paid, and
Indeed.
the medical itself.
Indeed, we can only hope that all of the remaining issues are
will all be
in
encompassing. Yeah, we hope it will be all encompassing. So we appreciate all this that I have mentioned. We appreciate the veterans for cooperating to coming to be part of history, because this
we
is
also
history.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much. There we have been speaking with Deputy Veteran Commander Awal Abdullahi Aliyu, who joined us on the News Hour tonight. Thank you so much. We do
Thank you for
appreciate your
having
time.
me.
You're welcome.